How can seeds guarantee our future?
How can a fake family dinner feel real on film? How's that for alliteration?
Amazing. Find out right now. Hello, welcome back to BioTrekkie with the Admiral. I'm Mohamed Noor, a biology professor at Duke University and an occasional science consultant for the Star Trek universe. I'm here with my wonderful co-host, Jayne Brook.
I'm Jayne Brook. I played Admiral Katrina Cornwell in the first two seasons of Discovery, and I'm here as Mohamed's friend and excited student of biology, looking forward to learning more about biology on Earth through the lens of Star Trek. So let's dive right in.
Yes.
We are putting together episodes 4 and 5 in terms of the biology in today's podcast. So Mohamed, can you give us a few things that jumped out at you that you would like to discuss today?
Sure. So three things that jumped out at me. So in episode 5, I was super excited to see that they included these misfolded proteins called prions being the cause of that nervous system disease in those refugee aliens. I think they were called the Kili. I have lots of thoughts on those, and I may have had a little something to do with it. The second one was, I thought the seed bank idea, the little seed bank spaceship that was run by the Barzan family, was really cool. And we actually have something like that here on Earth, up in Svalbard in the Arctic Circle. So we can talk about that a little bit. And then in episode 4, this is just a random little observation. I thought that little flying fish that they saw on the Trill homeworld was pretty cool. But
I love those. Well, great. Well, those are three things that I definitely, the flying fish. I love the flying fish and the prions. Can you elaborate for us on the prions, and then I'll ask you a couple more questions. With
Absolutely. It sounds great. So the word prion comes from the words protein infection. So the PR from protein, the ION from the end of infection. You put those two things together, that's where you get a prion. Now, prions are, as the word implies, infectious proteins. So all proteins have some sort of three-dimensional structure to them. And we tend to think of this sort of the string of amino acids, but it's not like spaghetti. They have some sort of structure. So it might be shaped like a ball, or it might be more like an open thing, something like that. Now, in terms of this particular prion protein, this is something that we produce all the time in our cells. It's produced like sort of near the nucleus. It goes out to some place out in the cell, and it hangs out for a while. And when we don't need it anymore, it's broken down. Now, if this other version of the protein is produced, the infectious type, it actually changes the structure. So imagine, let's say the ball is the normal structure and this is the infectious structure. What happens with the infectious structure is it comes out and it touches other proteins, but it actually forces them into that other structure too. So it changes the way they're shaped. That change in shape actually makes it so the cells can't actually break it down. So, the cells will keep producing more. They can't break it down. They keep producing more, and they just spread. And they spread like, within the cell, they spread between cells, and then they accumulate, especially in the nervous system and especially in the brain. Right. So this is associated with a lot of different diseases. In humans, there's something called CJD. I can't remember what it stands for. It's a very long name. But the most famous animal example would be mad cow disease. And when humans get this disease, when humans get the CJD or cows, it can cause seizures and eventually can actually lead to death. The really terrible thing about it is there's no really good treatment. You can't unfold them. You can't fix it. So there's no general treatment or cure or anything like that. And apparently there's not a general cure or treatment even 1,000 years from now. Now, prions actually, interestingly, did come up one other time in Star Trek. In Deep Space Nine, there's one episode where Dr. Bashir is talking to, I think it was to Jake Sisko, but they're just talking a shuttle, and he's talking about having come back from a conference and may come up with some new method for trying to treat prion diseases. And Jake Sisko, who's more a writer than a scientist, is just kind of tuning him out.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
Well, tell us, I have a question about it, but tell us specifically, you were saying that in this episode, you're credited. So tell us more about your role specifically in this episode
Sure.
and with the prions.
Sure. Well, let me preface by saying it's an honor and a privilege to have actually gotten to contribute to it. And it was
Yeah.
so cool seeing this, seeing things that I had said, like, being quoted by Sonequa Martin Green on screen and things like that. I was like, oh my gosh, that is so amazing. So I really loved it. I will say, like, my role was pretty minimal, and that, it's just a couple of lines of text here. Like the writers had already worked out that there was this alien species, that they were sick, that it had come in some way from something they'd eaten on the planet, some sort of planet, that they're going to go to a seed ship and get something to help. So the question that was posed to me is, what is it like? What is the disease? What is the form of this disease? What are the symptoms of it? And how might that relate, for example, to the seed cure? So I was trying to think of, like, what's a bad disease in that context. And it occurred to me that something like that would not be contagious to others on the space station, because that was a critical point they'd asked for as well. And prions just seemed like that would be a good option. So that's what we went with. And then we had a little bit of back and forth by email. I think it started with a phone call, then we had a little bit of back and forth by email to elaborate some specifics.
That's very cool. It's funny this is not something I had thought of, but when you did this and, the healthy protein is shaped like a ball, let's say, and the other unhealthy protein, it's sad that this is my plebeian take on it. Why does the bad guy always win? Like, the bad guy eats the good guy and makes the good guy turn into a bad guy. You wonder why this one can't make this one. Anyway, not to be, but I do have, when you speak of mad cow disease, that is something that I'm aware of really for the rest of my life. Every time there is a call for blood, because I'm O negative, the universal donor. So I'd be a great person to donate blood. And yet I went some years ago to my neighborhood Red Cross blood drive, all enthusiastic about donating blood, and was told quite firmly to leave because I had been in England in the 80s. And I do remember mad cow disease, a couple of people catching it, and there's nothing that you can do. And there's no test for it. They don't know how to test blood like they now can test blood for HIV. In the beginning, they couldn't. So I was told that I can never donate blood, even though, and I said to them, but I'm a total vegetarian. I never had any meat. But, understandably, they can't go by my, by my claim that I was vegetarian. But so mad cow is something that was a huge deal there in the 80s. And people don't think about it, but I'm aware of it all the time.
Oh, yeah. And it's tough with mad cow, because that was why they ended up just having to kill all the cows, because there was no cure, right? So it was really tragic, just in terms of not just the animals, but also
all the farmers,
economic impact. Exactly,
the economic impact. And there were a few people who did get it. It did jump, So I'm always a little bit like, oh, mad cow. So the second,
actually, can I ask you a quick question?
Oh, sure.
So did you interact at all when you were in Star Trek with any sort of consultants or anything like that? And besides the writers, did you interact with any other sort of outside consultants?
You know what? I did not directly interact. I would ask questions of the writers, of course, especially to ask what their intention might be, or if I questioned, if I didn't understand a line. I was very aware of the Klingon consultants, because I had so many scenes with, like, Mary and Ken a couple times. So there's always a Klingon consultant for the language.
And they're there on set with you.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
They're on set to help, to help go over lines, to help go over pronunciation, to help if there has to be a change, which usually I think with Klingon, they would try not to do at the last minute. That's a bit big.
Yeah.
But they could do the language, switch over. So that, on that particular show, I was not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Didn't have a consultant.
I didn't interact with any actors at all.
Shows,
everything I did was just with the writers too.
Right. Yeah. And they put it on the page, and then medical shows I've done, there's always a medical consultant right there. But,
like Chicago Hope.
Yeah. And other ones too. But so the seed bank, I have thoughts about that in a kind of philosophical sense, but tell us scientifically, tell us about the seed bank. And
Sure. So there is one, it's up in Svalbard, which is up in the Arctic Circle. So that's like an island archipelago that's mostly run by Norway, but it's very open. Like, you don't need a visa to go there and things like that. I think a friend of mine actually got engaged up there too. But that seed bank's been up there for a little bit over 10 years. And the reason that they put it there was that's an area that doesn't get earthquakes. It's permafrost. So you can, essentially you're just constantly frozen there. At least we'll see what happens with global climate change.
The minute you say that, I'm like, oh, is that going to be true? Yeah, for long.
Yeah, we shall see. But it's also just away from people problems. Like, that's not an area that's going to end up having, battles or wars or anything crazy that. But what's nice is the seeds are kept there at low temperatures, around 0 Fahrenheit, which, is pretty close to the sort of the permafrost temperatures. And it's just a repository there. So you can find, there's a lot of crops, especially so many different like crop varieties and things like that are kept there and just in containers in that area. And I think people can just access it as they need. Yeah.
Oh, so they're not just sitting there forever. People can actually ask for seeds from there?
It's kind of like a bank safety deposit box. So it's not like the Norwegian government owns it, but they're basically just providing the facility. And then, let's say, for example, the United States can go deposit some fancy chili peppers or something like that, the seeds for it. And you can check them out if something came up where you need them back.
So,
but I don't think you can take somebody else's though. Like, I don't think we can go there and be like, I want Russia's.
I want Russia's chili peppers. Yeah. So everyone has access. I was going to ask you who has access and who owns the seeds, but it sounds like whoever made the deposit has access and owns the seeds. Now, to me, it's a sobering, it's a inspiring and comforting idea that there's a seed bank should old crops or whatever get destroyed.
Totally.
But it's a very sobering idea as well, because I can't help but think that there's preparation for total annihilation, and at least these seeds would survive to start civilization again. And that's, while we're all going around paying our bills and trying to get our kids to school and work, there's people thinking about, we better save all these seeds in case of, I don't know, nuclear war
or something.
I know, it's very sobering.
Or even just outcomes of global climate change that maybe they're being planted, but they're just going to die because we're not taking care of our environment well enough.
Right. And that's a whole nother conversation. So they would have to move that seed bank even further north. To a point. There's no further north to go.
There's not much left.
There's nowhere to go. Oh, wow.
No. Yeah.
Let's all watch that seed bank. It's interesting that should be something that the environmentalists make clear to the humankind, that we are saving these seeds.
Yeah.
And if climate change destroys the Arctic Circle and the permafrost, then it's scary. It's a scary
thing. One interesting thing. So the contrast, there's some contrast to the one that we saw in Star Trek in the sense that seemed like it was just Federation. So it didn't seem like, the Barzan homeworld owned all. I mean, they were being like Norway and just they were protecting it. But I think anybody from the Federation could get any of them. And one interesting thing, do you remember when they got the seeds out there, was that long light sequence? So Adam, my son, asked about what was the point of that? And I was trying to come up with some headcanon for why you would have that long light sequence, because in the end it just opens up. Why did you need all those lights all the way down?
It's some sort of lock, some sort of security. Yeah,
that could be. That's actually, I didn't think about that. That could be it. I was thinking is that we always think in the context of how we perceive things, that if it opens up, you just go to that. But for example, pointing, right? So let's imagine that this came out and you didn't see exactly where it was. Normally you just say, well, somebody would just point at it. Now we perceive pointing just fine. We know exactly where to look. But for example, it's pretty well documented that chimpanzees, if you point, they look at your finger. They don't.
Oh, is that right?
They don't
cool.
They don't project out to see what you're pointing at. So maybe that was something for some.
They wonder why you're moving your finger.
Yeah, exactly.
How interesting.
So maybe some alien species have that same problem. So the light thing is to follow this there.
That's actually a much better answer than security. Oh, very interesting. See, that's a cool thing that I learned. Chimpanzees will look at your finger.
Yeah.
Oh, how interesting. Yeah.
They have a hard time perceiving it. You mean
humans.
Look past that.
That's that difference between the human and the ape or whatever.
Yep.
So the third thing that both of us, I was enchanted by those fish.
Yeah.
by those. I mean, they were just so whimsical, and it made me think what fun the CGI guys and gals
Yeah,
must be having,
that was
when they
so cool.
can, that they could create something. It was just so whimsical and nice. And anyway, you had some thoughts
Agreed.
about that.
Well, just the one thing I thought was interesting is they were doing powered flight. So flying fish that we know of here on Earth are just gliders. Like they jump out of
Right.
the water and they
They
just
jump out and
glide.
glide.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. Whereas this was a power, like you saw it flapping, and it clearly was like it was a powered flight. I was like, ooh, that's interesting. That's a very different take on a flying fish. So I thought that
Right.
was really cool.
It was a fish bird.
Ah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Fish bird.
I'm glad you liked
Um,
it too.
Yeah, I did. They were fun. They were, I like animals anyway, so that
Yeah,
was
me
a
too.
fun animal. So yeah, was there any other biological?
No, that's it for the biology. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I mean, I thought the acting in both these episodes was amazing, especially like I love the scenes with lots of people, especially when they were big groups interacting together. And I'd love to hear your take on what makes scenes like that work well. So, for example, as we said in our opening, the family dinner is one
The
example.
fun family dinner. Well, I have many thoughts. I also am so impressed and by the acting this season. I think just Sonequa hitting it out of the ballpark. I think that everyone. I mean, I can
Yeah,
just, Emily last week in episode 4.
yeah. I love that she
With
has
with
more.
her distress, and I mean, so many people. I thought the non-character was great in this
Mhm.
episode. Like all the guest stars, all the Wilson has had some really like two solid feet on the ground
Totally,
moments,
totally.
and another Michelle Yeoh. I mean, it's just so wonderful. And in this past episode 5, when she still has that really tough and smart demeanor, but then they do that moment when she turns because the guy has figured out, he's so, and who is that character? He was kind of cool and interesting, that man.
Totally.
But um that he had gone right to the heart of it. He had said, "Who are you protecting on this ship?" And she had been really tough, but we saw when she turned, uh and also because she had been informed that her whole universe was gone now. But
Yeah, that was painful.
um and we just saw it. She did a great job. But I could say so many moments. And your question was, what makes something work? I mean, like any magical moment in anything artistic, when everything's firing on all cylinders, it's just this blissful moment when the foundation of it is the writing. And I think the writing is excellent. I think it's heartfelt and deep. I think, you know, Michelle Paradise is just heading up a great room there. It's just, there seems to be, um, many levels, many layers. And when there's that, there's always more for the actors to bite into. So the actors then bring their best game. And then, the director has to be a shepherd who follows the storyline, and not only shoots it in an interesting way, but also gets into the actual the shoes, one would hope, of each character and follows the storyline. And then you have, I mean, so many things have to fire in the right way. You have to have, the DP and the film crew and the crew and everybody, like everything
Ooh,
has
what's
to
the
come
DP?
together.
Sorry.
DP is the director of photography. So
Ah,
he or she would be the one to, who films it and controls the lighting and all that. And then, of course, you have all the post,
yeah.
the way it's edited together and the CG and all that. So you asked about those scenes with a bunch of people. All of us can relate to those family scenes where it starts out really nice and then everything falls apart. Those are kind of fun, and they have to be rehearsed very well so that everyone knows their individual point of view, and the director obviously knows everyone's individual point of view, and the cameraman, and everybody, boom, 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 has to come in with energy at the right moment.
Do they have to repeat it like 5 times so they get it from all the different angles?
Yeah, well, that's always the case in filming,
Mm,
but you have to do it many, many times. And yeah, as many individual angles as they had,
mm.
including the master, is as many times as they would have had to do that. So um, they're fun scenes to do, though, when they're really firing and you get to act with everybody. It's fun.
Does
And
it
it's
feel
funny.
does it
It's
feel
funny
less
too.
natural after you do it like once? Like do you feel like does it feel forced on the fourth time you're doing
That's
it?
Well, I mean, that's something, it's funny because a lot of the things that seem really foreign to people who don't act, like the questions that actors often get are, how do you memorize your lines? Or how do you do it so many times in a row? Those aren't the questions that are
It's not a problem.
the main concerns usually of an actor. An actor's asking him or herself, how do I actually really get into this so that I portray it? So I bring this writing off the page. How
Okay.
do I become this? So if you have really investigated it, you enjoy doing it again and again. I mean,
Okay.
obviously, if you do it 150 times in a row and you're working till 4 a.m, it can get tiring. But a good scene like that would be fun to do. I think I
So
would have
if
fun
you have to
doing
do it
it.
many times, but you're outdoors, do you have to then do it across days? Because like the sun isn't going to stay
Well,
the same.
that's the director. That has to be boarded. They have to plan for that, because no, they don't want to keep coming back unless
Yeah.
it's some huge movie,
Yeah.
but they don't want to have to keep coming back. They want to get that. So there's been many times when I've worked and the sun's going down and they're like, go, go, go. We've
I
got
love
30
that.
seconds. You know? And then you as an actor are like, oh my God, I've got to cry. You got to be like ready to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
The whole thing. Anyway,
That's
so it's
amazing.
fun.
That's amazing.
But they're
Cool.
doing a great job. I'm so enjoying this season. I just think it's fantastic. So
Agreed. Agreed.
yeah, yeah.
Cool.
And
Any
I'm
final
learning.
thoughts? Oh yeah, same.
No,
I
I'm
learned a
just
lot.
learning about biology. It's fun. No final thoughts. Just bravo and carry on, and we'll keep watching.
Awesome. I learned a lot about the behind the scenes aspect too. So thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks to everybody for watching. Tune in next time for BioTrekkie with the Admiral. And as usual, live long and prosper.
Thank you.